Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where people truly believe that they rule the world and everything they say goes. And in today's episode, oh, frickin' boy, guys, we're dealing with psycho parents. So get ready to shake your heads because these posts are wild. I hope you enjoy the stories. Subscribe if you're not subscribed, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So here's some backstory. This happened about a year ago when I was working as a restaurant manager. I was kind of a jack of all trades. I was serving customers, managing, guiding other staff members, and I prepared the restaurant before opening every day. On this day, I was just doing my thing, serving tables, keeping everyone happy, and keeping everything going smooth, until I heard some ruckus at a table near the one I was serving. I look over, and I see a waitress arguing with a Karen over something. I didn't really pay attention to it because it happens from time to time. A couple of minutes later, the waitress taps me on the shoulder and she asks me for some help. I say, sure, what's up? She said she had trouble dealing with one of the customers. Now, for some context, the waitress was a 17-year-old girl that helped out on the weekends as a side job. She started working about 2 months before all this happened. She picked up everything really quick, so it was rare for her to ask for help, unless it was to lift something really heavy. She told me that Karen wanted her to sit on birthday boy's lap because it's his birthday. Waitress obviously refused, so Karen starts to argue about it. The argument I spotted earlier, and that's when the waitress walked away. I told her to just ignore it for now, and if it didn't stop or it escalated in any way, to come get me. I did this to see if Karen was maybe joking, and the waitress did not pick up on it. I wasn't there, so it was hard to judge. The waitress nodded and continued to work. Everything went pretty smooth until suddenly I hear the waitress scream my name, and so did everyone else in the restaurant. I stopped what I was doing and rushed over to see what's happening. When I turn the corner, I see Karen grabbing the waitress and trying to force her on her kid's lap. I later found out that the kid was 17 years old. So I ran over and pulled Karen off the waitress. At that, Karen instantly starts screaming at me to let her go. So I told her to sit down and we'll talk. Karen calmed down a bit and she actually sat down. And that's when I noticed a tray and a couple of broken glasses laying on the floor. I turned to ask if waitress was okay. She told me she was fine now, but she dropped the tray when Karen suddenly grabbed her. I told her not to worry about it and asked her to clean it up while I dealt with the Karen. I turned back around and I saw that Karen had gotten pretty impatient. Birthday boy was super embarrassed and his friends were just sitting there in silence. Most customers had continued doing whatever they were doing, but there were definitely people looking over. I then calmly asked Karen what happened. Not that I didn't know what happened, I just wanted to hear her side of the story. Karen says to me, "It was my son's birthday yesterday, and he was just talking about how cute he thought that waitress was, while pointing at the waitress." I say to Karen, "Okay." She then goes on and says, "So I asked her to sit on my son's lap for a bit, to make this day extra special for him, but she refused." I say to her, "Rightfully so." That's when Karen says, "Well, she's paid to serve us, right? What's the harm in sitting on his lap for a minute?" That's when I tell Karen, "Ma'am, she's paid to serve you drinks, not to sit on people's laps. Besides that, she doesn't want to sit on people's laps. She doesn't know you or your son. Why would she be comfortable with sitting on his lap?" Karen then says, "What's the problem? He's not gonna hurt her." I say to her, "That doesn't matter. She doesn't want to sit on his lap, so end of story. Now please drop it or I'll have to ask you to leave." Karen then says, "This is unacceptable. Let me talk to the manager." I tell her, "You are talking to the manager." She says, "You're lying. You can't be the manager. You are way too young." I tell her, "Believe it or not, I'm the manager here." She then says, "I want to talk to the owner then." I tell her he's not in at the moment. And at that point, Karen grabs her drink, a full glass of red wine. She then stood up and threw it in my face while screaming, "Stop effing lying to me." Of course, I'm furious. I'm trying to stay calm and I say, "Pay and get out." Karen argues and says, "No, you can't kick us out and I'm not gonna pay for this. This is bad service." I just tell her, "I suggest you pay for your meal and the glasses you broke and leave before I call the police." Karen says to me, "I didn't break those glasses. She dropped them." After a small argument about the broken glasses, she refused to pay and she just walked out. Birthday boy and his friends had left already and they were waiting outside. While closing the door, she screams, thanks for ruining my son's birthday party. A week later, the birthday boy came back with his friends without his mom to have a second attempt at celebrating his birthday, and we had a great time. The birthday boy apologized to the waitress for his mom's behavior, and all was good. Karen was billed, and she was reminded twice, and she still refused to pay. Guys, why am I not surprised at all? And like, what was that woman thinking? Ma'am, this is a restaurant, not a freaky club of some sort. And seriously, the entitlement though, right? Mom, that girl is really, really cute. And her response was, oh really? You think she's cute? Well, let me grab her and just plop her on your lap for you since it's your birthday. You know, it is nice that some parents go above and beyond for their kids on their birthdays, but some parents really need to learn when they're crossing the line. And if you think this story was a bit outrageous, oh boy, this is the most tame story in this one, guys. This is a story that I've kept to myself and my close family. This happened over 19 years ago, and I still can't believe they thought it was okay. At the time of the incident, my husband and I had been married for just over 2 years. I was 25 at the time. I never had a good relationship with my step-grandparents because I wasn't their blood relation, so they didn't really see me as a real person. My mother had divorced my father and then married his best friend and had a child with him. I was 11 when my youngest sister was born. You need to understand that these people have known me for like 15 years at this time. I didn't have anything to do with my step-grandparents since I turned 18. Not a malicious thing, I just worked a lot and went to school. When I was 22, my husband and I got married. We kind of eloped. I had planned a big wedding, but everything fell through at the last minute, so we got married on the date I picked and had a honeymoon at the same time. Only my husband's family could afford to go with us. Fast forward a few years and I gave birth to my very first child, a beautiful blonde-haired, blue-eyed little girl. My daughter was probably about a week, maybe 2 weeks old at the time, and that's when I got a call from my step-grandparents asking me about my new baby. I thought it was a jovial call to ask me how things are going and to see how the baby is. This was their first great-grandbaby girl, if they had accepted me as a grandchild, but I digress. They then start to ask me what she looks like, so I told them. They thought that was wonderful. They then asked me what her name was. She had a gender-neutral name, but of course, they did not like that, and they kept insisting it needed to be changed. So I told them that was the name I gave her because I liked it. They then started to go on to talk about how I was going to send my daughter on a plane to visit them. I was taken aback, to say the least. I kindly informed them that no, I'm not going to put a newborn on a plane to go visit grandparents. They told me that they'll have someone come pick her up at the airport, and all I had to do was sign the papers. I asked, what papers are you talking about? They then told me they needed custody papers because they needed to take her to the doctor when she arrived. I informed them that she's been seen by doctors already and she's got all her vaccines. Again, I haven't spoke to them in more than 4 years and they're asking me to go to the airport and sign custody papers and put my daughter on a plane with a stranger. I kindly informed them that I was doing no such thing, that my daughter needs to be with her mother because I breastfeed her. They then told me that I need to stop and that I need to put her on a bottle so she would be ready for the trip. I had to tell them no, my daughter's not getting on a plane to go visit relatives in another state without her mom. They then told me that I need to just sign the papers and send her. They even said that I could have children later, that I was young and I could have children when I got married. I informed them that I am married and that my husband and I are not putting our child on a plane to go see relatives in another state when she's less than 2 weeks old. That's when the conversation starts to go really south. She starts yelling at me how I was ruining it for her daughter, that her daughter would take care of a baby better than a child. She then told me, your aunt can't have children, and you're taking this away from her. They said that I was stealing her only chance to have a baby. They said that I'm selfish, self-centered, egotistical, arrogant, and rude. That I could have a child when I'm ready and able to take care of a child. She said that I was way too young and I need to grow up, stop lying, and wait till I'm married to have a baby. That this was best for everybody. They then informed me that they were recording the call and a lawyer would be looking into it, that I'm going back on my word. that I had somehow agreed to letting them take my baby, and now I'm reneging on that. Mind you, again, I've never spoken to these people in probably more than 4 years. What they're talking about, I have no idea. My step-grandmother then informed me that I was disgusting for breastfeeding my child, and that I just need to give her a bottle like a normal person, that I was denying my baby doctor's visits because I was supposedly so poor and couldn't afford it. And where they got this information, I have no idea. She then decided it was okay, that I could just pump milk and send her my milk, and that she would pay for it since I needed money because I was so poor. Somehow, they thought I owed them my baby because 1, the baby's blonde-haired, blue-eyed, just what my aunt wanted her entire life, 2, that I'm a child and I could not possibly raise a child, and 3, somehow I told them that I would give them my baby. And now I'm lying. I just ended up telling them exactly how I feel about them. I told them that I was not gonna put my baby that I had with my husband on a plane to visit my step-grandparents and my step-aunt that I've never considered as family, and also told them the fact that my step-aunt straight up hates me, and she's made it very well known that she does. When I was a child, my step-aunt told me to my face that I was worthless, that I was nothing, that my father divorced my mom because he couldn't stand me. I actually know for a fact that my mom divorced my father. I also told my step-grandparents that I was never gonna let her see my daughter because my step-aunt was so cruel to me, when all I ever wanted was to be friends with her. All I ever wanted was grandparents that loved and cared about me, but they made that very obvious that they never would. It just got worse from there. They start calling me all kinds of names, saying how they were gonna sue me, that they were gonna get custody of my child, whether I liked it or not, that I was somehow an unfit single mom, living an ungodly lifestyle. I informed her that just because she didn't see me with her own eyes getting married does not mean that I'm not married. That she was delusional for thinking she can take my baby without me having any say-so. I told them to never call me again. The whole event was so emotional to me that for many years I worried that somebody would come and try to take my daughter away from me. I became very protective of her, and I never let anyone babysit her. I now know that these are crazy people trying to get what they wanted, but how in the world do they think they're gonna take from me is beyond me. I no longer have any contact with these crazy people, and no lawyer or anything ever came of the threats. I just wanted to write this story to get it off my chest, and I wanted to hear from others that I was actually justified in being the way that I am. Yeah, those step-grandparents were beyond entitled, guys, like wild. And honestly, I don't know any parent that would put their 2-week-old on a flight and just send them off like that. Like, those step-grandparents were freaking off their rockers if they actually thought OP was gonna do that. And clearly it sounded like the grandparents did not plan for it to be a visit. Like, they literally wanted to keep OP's baby, which is frickin' nutso, guys. And yes, to answer OP's question, she was totally justified in being paranoid. Like, who knows what those grandparents were planning, right? And it's always super baffling to me how family members actually do this stuff, guys. I'm pretty sure it's more common than we all think. And guys, if you think that story was pretty over the top, listen to this next one, where OP tells a story about her insane dad. Oh, and before we go on to these next 2 stories, guys, I just want to say that these last 2 deal with parents who are way over the top, guys, and they cross personal boundaries. Like, there's nothing graphic or violent described, but the situations that OP are in may be uncomfortable for some. So if parents crossing lines and doing insane things is not for you, please do not listen to these next 2. Again, there's nothing graphic or violent, I'm just letting you guys know. With that said, here we go. So I'm not sure if this belongs, but I thought I'd share it with you. This happened a long time ago, and I was reminded of it recently. My dad is very entitled, and he's had a few entitled incidents in the past, including yelling at public employees, insulting them, and insulting me and my sister. But this one was by far his worst one. My dad had discovered that the toilet was clogged in the morning. He asked me and my sister who did it, and neither of us did, so we said no. He then told us that he knew it was one of us because, quote, there's blood in the toilet, and no one else in this household gets periods. Now also note that neither my sister or I were on our period. My dad just lost it. At first, he grounded us to our rooms, but the more we didn't say anything, the angrier and more entitled he got. He then proceeded to force us to stand in the hall outside the bathroom, until one of us confessed, saying he deserved answers as this is his house. We weren't allowed to leave to use the other bathroom or get something to eat. We weren't allowed to talk or sit down. My dad periodically went by and interrogated us, stepping into our personal space and trying to intimidate us. This went on for about 1 hour, maybe longer. At one point, he was interrogating us and I start crying and hyperventilating. He then scoffed and said, "Ugh, you wouldn't be crying if you were innocent. Just admit that it was you." He then got in my face and stared me down. I closed my eyes. He was so close that I could feel his breath on my face. Eventually, he scoffed again and he went away. My sister and I whispered to each other, telling each other that we didn't do this. We debated just having one of us confess anyways, but decided that we would face him together, truthfully. Another 15 minutes goes by and my dad comes back and his demands were ridiculous. He then tells us that since neither of us would tell him who did it, that we would have to change out of our underwear and he would inspect it for blood. And whoever was on their period was the one who clogged the toilet. Hearing him say that, I thought, I'm sorry, what? Of course, we both refused, and my dad gets even more pissed, and he said if I didn't, that he'd take it as an admission of guilt. Now, I know you're probably expecting me to put up a fight, but at this point, I was starving, and I just wanted it over with so I could go eat, so me and my sister complied. I wasn't wearing any underwear as it was a Sunday morning. I was in my pajamas, so he made me put on a pair of his pants so he could look at mine. He inspected, and obviously he found nothing because neither of us were on our periods. He then decides that instead of him, God forbid, being wrong about something, that we must be using tampons, and that's why there was no blood. That's when I suggested that maybe someone had cut themselves shaving. He then glared at me, and he said in this incredibly condescending voice, "Really? That's what you think happened? You think someone else did this?" Eventually, my brother came home and my dad gave up and let us go, citing some BS like, "You now have permission to go make food." I'm not sure if it was because he came to his senses or he didn't want to punish us like that in front of other people, but I didn't really care. I was just glad that nothing else happened and I could go hide under my covers and cry. I didn't end up eating breakfast that day and he basically ignored us the rest of the time we were there. Guys, see, this is the kind of behavior that leads kids to go no contact in the future once they're older. And I know this happened a long time ago, but I hope OP and her sister told their mom what happened. Like, what a freaking insane dad for doing that to OP and her sister. Like, yeah, the toilet's clogged. Big freaking deal, dude. Get a plunger, fix it, and then move on. There was literally no point in doing that to the kids for an hour because he achieved absolutely nothing out of it. Except for the fact that his 2 kids now think he's such a sick, twisted a-hole and they hate him more. And while we're on this train, guys, the next story isn't any better. So anyway, before we get into the story, the outcome is my friend's dad was then divorced. It turns out he was a sick predator and he's in jail. The guy had about 5 restraining orders after what happened. Okay, so with that said, when this happened, I was at my friend's birthday sleepover. We were swimming in her pool and we drank some wine coolers. We did not get drunk, just slightly tipsy. So anyways, my friend's dad had a strict no doors locked policy in his home. We all knew that when we were at my friend's place, whatever her dad says goes, and if we disobey, well, we know what entitled people who are disobeyed do. Anyways, I decide to take a shower after the swim, so I of course locked the door. I was bathing in my friend's bathroom, so I had her bedroom door shut, and the bathroom door locked. While in the shower, I hear my friend's bedroom door open as I shouted "occupied" out of the shower. I got no response, except the door shutting quickly, which I thought was one of the other girls walking in and seeing that I was in there. Anyway, I step out of the shower and stayed in the bathroom while I changed and dried off. All of a sudden, the bedroom door opens again, and when I said occupied, the person did not stop. They went straight for the bathroom door, and they jiggled the handle extremely violently and pounded on the door. I just stayed silent, as I thought there was someone in the house trying to get to me. 10 seconds later, I hear her dad's voice yell, "Open this damn door right effing now. There's no locked doors in my house." At this point, I was already changed into clean clothes, and I just stayed silent and slowly opened the door. He then screams at me and says, "Why the hell is the door locked? You know the rules in this house when you're over." He just kept shouting at me as I apologized and explained that I was showering. I just wanted privacy, and he said that's no excuse. I pushed that aside as I thought he was in a bad mood, or something happened and he couldn't do anything because the door was locked. I then stuffed my dirty clothes into my bag and then went back to the party. We were all in the living room, settling down in our sleeping bags. I set my bag right next to me as I have some valuable stuff in my bag, like a phone, charger, money, etc. We watched movies until 4 in the morning, which is when I started to go to sleep. I then got a strange feeling about being watched, so I stay up another hour on my phone. I fell asleep about an hour later, and that's when I hear rustling next to my head. I opened my eyes to see my friend's dad squatting next to me, rummaging through my bag as he pulled out my dirty bra. I just screamed at the top of my lungs and woke everyone up. My stuff was everywhere as my friend's dad quickly dropped my stuff. I then screamed, "What the F are you doing?" as everybody saw what he did and saw him drop my stuff. The guy tried to defend himself as his wife comes rushing in. He screams, "I was making sure you guys didn't have drugs. Never know with you kids." That was the excuse he went with. So I ran to the wife and explained what happened as the dad was saying that I'm a liar and that I forced him to hold my bra. His wife pulled him to a different room, and I explained to my friend what her dad did, and she told someone else, and I guess it spread around. Everyone was panicking as they were all making sure the man didn't take their underwear. And that's when I hear the wife scream, "He stole your underwear." So I call the police. I hear the wife scream as it was just a crap show. We then run over to her to make sure she was alright as everything started to go to chaos. The girls were crying and panicking because he had this area which his wife didn't know about, and there were name tags for each underwear pile, like Cindy's underwear, etc. The police then arrived, and we explained to them what happened as he was taken away. A few months later, I went to court as my parents were pressing charges. I explained what happened, and we won the case. And then another few months go by, and I was talking to my same friend, and she said her parents got a divorce. Yeah, I'm just glad to know that guy faced consequences for his actions, guys. Like, what a freaking creep, right? Clearly, there was a reason for no doors locked in this house. The guy was probably hoping to accidentally walk into his daughter's friends or something. Again, glad he's in jail. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed yesterday's episode on the channel, it's an r/I don't work here lady episode, where Karens are demanding immigrants serve them because it's the law. It's such a crazy episode, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.